To review, let's go through some examples of these situations to manually apply the principles learned in this DVD. First, let's approach a portrait situation. It's always smart to first preset the white balance to match the current lighting. Use the preset or custom white balance. Make sure that the focus point falls on the subject's eyes. For portraits, you'll probably want to blur the background. This effect is achieved by opening the aperture. Remember, the smaller the f number, the larger the aperture opening. After the aperture is set, adjust the shutter speed to achieve the proper exposure. By letting in more light, you create a short depth of field. This will allow your focus point to be in sharp focus while the background will have a soft focus. The next common situation is a landscape. You will usually want the whole landscape to be in sharp focus. To achieve this, the aperture will need to be set to a very narrow opening. Remember, the larger the f number, the smaller the depth of field. A small opening creates a very long depth of field. This mode will give you a sharp focus in both the foreground and the background. Then adjust the shutter speed to achieve a proper exposure. In this setting, the shutter speed can get pretty slow, so be sure to steady your camera or use a tripod to avoid camera shake. When taking pictures at a sporting event or shooting subjects with a lot of motion, it's a good idea to prepare your camera before the action begins. Here are some tips to help you prepare. First, preset the white balance. Second, switch your AI servo to AI focus so the camera will constantly be focusing on the moving object. Finally, set your camera to continuous shooting mode so when the action happens, you only need to hold the shutter button down once. If you want your subject to be in sharp focus, turn your ISO up to around 400 to 1600. Next, adjust your shutter speed relatively high, then adjust your aperture for a proper exposure. Take a couple of practice shots to fine-tune. Now you're ready for action. If you want to show a little blur to add aesthetic effect, slightly slow the shutter speed.